Hi everyone, this is Maria. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing tips for propagation and care of Peperomia Prostata, popularly known as string of turtles. This is a beautiful plant, probably from all the strings that I have. It's my favorite. I have string of bananas that has treated me really well, 3 foot long right now. I have string of hearts, variegated and regular. I have string of pearls, but this is my favorite. I don't know how it is where you live. I live in Michigan, and for 6 years that I have been collecting succulents and some of the tropical plants. I go regularly to nurseries and big box stores. I have seen this plant only once for sale, and it was only a few pots. So it seems like it's a bit more rare, or maybe it's a higher demand for this plant, but it's also very expensive online. So you can find, 4-inch pots for over $20. So let's talk about how you can care the best for this plant and how you can propagate it. I'll talk about light, soil, watering, and I'm going to share what worked for me. Because I researched tips about this for this plant, and I don't think I quite followed it. So I'm going to share what worked for me, because I had it for 6 months and it grew tremendously. So let's start. So string of pearls likes well-draining soil, just like succulents. It has very tiny roots that if they're sitting in the water, they will easily rot. It's recommended to have primarily peat for this plant. Now, I imagine when I got this plant to be together with this philodendron. And philodendron that I have definitely doesn't like peat. So the soil mixture that I have here, actually, guys, as you can see the pot, I wanted it to look like a mini jungle pot with a big philodendron and then trailing string of turtles. The mixture of soil that I have here is 1/3 orchid bark, 1/3 espoma cactus soil mix, perlite and rocks, and then I have 1/3 cocoa brick soil. And I placed my string of turtles up on the top, and it seemed to be happy with this soil mixture, because really it's not getting soggy here, because this is a very deep planter, and then there is another plant here in this pot. When it comes to watering, I water these both plants once a week. So I didn't have problem with either symptoms of underwatering, which would be dried up leaves. That would be very easy to identify, or overwatering, where you would have rotting or yellow leaves. One tip that I can share with you, if you do not have this plant together with another plant like I have, is to place it at a little bit deeper planter and then water it just about 1/4 of the size of the planter. So for example, if you have it in a 2 cups size planter, then maybe you can just use 1/4 cup water once a week when you're watering. So I'm watering it once a week. I definitely see slowing down with this plant now, since it is October 31st today. I know that they're winter dormant, so probably next 3 months I will not see as much growth. So interesting thing about light. So I read about these, and they do not like a direct light. And originally I actually placed it facing southwest, which is pretty harsh sun from noon till the late evening. This philodendron that has a lot of big leaves has definitely been providing some shade and making the light more indirect for the string of turtles, but it was for a period of time on quite strong sunlight, and it grew quite a bit. When I moved it here facing east, and it still gets some light in the afternoon, but mostly in the morning, I think it grew the most during that time. I definitely think that this plant loves light. I would say facing east for most plants, you can't be mistaken. Like a lot of plants, if you have like a 1 foot or 2 foot from the window facing east, they will love it. When I was watching other videos in the past and reading about it, you know, people will show their string of turtles after a few years and being, you know, few feet long. I had it 6 months. I bought it in a 6-inch pot, and it maybe had like strings few inches, you know, trailing. And look at it, guys, right now. Some of the strings are 2 feet long. And let me just say that I have divided my 6-inch pot in 3 parts. So I gave to my friend Amanda 1/3, to another friend another third. And so this is the third of the 6-inch pot, and its growth in the last 5 months. Because if you watch my video from 6 months ago when I got this plant and when I was planting the philodendron, I can put the link in the description. It looked like a pile, and a lot of you recommended me that it needs to be thinned out, you know, and I did that, and I cut it and I divided it. I didn't make a video about it, so I left a smaller section. See how much thinner it is because I trimmed it down, and how much it spread all around the pot. And it also bloomed this year. So blooms look like these worms that are sticking up. Actually, my Peperomia ruby cascade had the same blooms, and I'm not the biggest fan of those blooms, to be honest. I just kind of chopped them off, but you can leave them if you like. And so now let's talk about propagation. As you can see, guys, probably the laziest and easiest method of propagation that I like to use with this plant is to just let it prostrate itself, that's how it got the name, on the top of the soil, and it really easily roots in a matter of like a week or 2, and then you can cut some of these rooted strings, you know, carefully, or you can cut to thin it down some of these more dense areas and place those in the soil and wait to root, and then place them in another pot. So far I didn't have any pests, which is really nice, and I hope that that will continue. Another way you can propagate this plant is by placing the cuttings in the water, which I have just done recently. So I was hoping I will have some results in like a week or a few days so I can show you, but it is not a good time to propagate this plant. You can also propagate by placing the cuttings directly in the moss and then making sure that it's moist. I don't think it's too difficult to propagate. One interesting thing that I read about this plant is that it is established after a few years, and then it grows for about 5 years, and then it may die. So they recommend that it needs to be propagated. Now that's not going to be issue for me here because it's propagating itself all the time around this pot. So even if the part of the mother plant dies, I will have plenty more of the plant in this pot. But that was a very interesting thing that I never heard about before. And I also wanted to show you the difference between these young leaves when they grow. So here we have like a little string that you can see how thin these leaves are, and they are also smaller in size, still beautiful, but as they mature they become more succulent like, and they become larger, and they also tend to have very thick and a shell like appearance. That's how it got named string of turtles, as you can see. I think that both looks are very beautiful, but you can have in one pot, you know, variation where you have some of these big plumpy leaves and then some that are young new leaves that are growing new strings on the new strings. Since I had such a positive experience with this plant, I would highly recommend it. It's just gorgeous, and I think it looks really nice combined with another plant. And yeah, so I think also when you have a deeper planter, you're avoiding a problem with overwatering. Also, if it's a big old planter and a space, it can propagate itself. really easy. It hasn't been very difficult for me to care for. So hope these tips have been helpful to you. I will see you soon in the next video.